The movie begins with a family of three. It's clear that the father loves painting, as he's sitting in his room drawing. Suddenly, strong winds hit, so he takes his wife and son and leaves the room. A violent storm comes and breaks the window, but it turns out it's not just a storm, it's a terrifying creature. The next day, our main character, David, grabs the ruined painting and angrily throws it in the trash. His frustration grows, but his wife tries to calm him down. At that moment, their son, Billy, calls for them, trying to get their attention because he saw something strange. However, they completely ignore him, so Billy decides to go to them, begging them to come see the broken boat. His mom dismisses it, saying he's probably imagining things. But when they see he's serious, they finally follow him and discover that the boat is indeed wrecked. They glance toward the lake and notice a thick mist, but they don't think much of it at the time. Later, David asks his wife to get their son Billy ready because he plans to take him to town, as he has something important to discuss with a friend. His wife doesn't want him to take Billy along, but David insists. He then goes to their neighbor's house and finds that all the trees in front of it have fallen, and even the neighbor's Mercedes is almost destroyed. Before David leaves, his neighbor asks if he's heading to town today, and after learning that David is taking his son, the neighbor decides to join them. They prepare and get in the car, driving toward town. Along the way, they talk and joke around, teasing Edna because she loves reading tabloids, especially the gossip section. They also mock her for having a child with a scary appearance. Suddenly, they encounter a large convoy of police cars speeding by. Both David and his neighbor are puzzled but assume the police are chasing a group of criminals. Once they reach the town, Billy asks his dad if he can go with Mr. Norton, their neighbor, while David runs his errands. David agrees, but only if Billy promises to hold his hand and never let go. David leaves them and heads to meet Mr. Steve, later stopping by the supermarket to ask the clerk about Steve's whereabouts. She informs him that the power's been out since the morning and that there have been numerous problems because of it. She also tells him that Steve isn't around, and the supermarket is in complete chaos. David then meets up with his son and Mr. Norton, and they leave the store. Billy asks his dad if he and Mr. Norton are still friends, to which David replies that friend is a big word for him, and he's not sure if their past issues have truly been resolved. At that moment, everyone in the supermarket is caught off guard as a group of police officers arrives. People are confused and on edge, unsure of what's happening. The tension grows when the fire alarms go off, and they see an injured old man approaching from the distance. He enters the supermarket, clearly hurt, and tells everyone that the approaching mist hides terrifying creatures. The crowd tries to calm him down and secure the doors, but the man isn't convinced. He decides to get into his car, but the mist catches up with him, and he starts screaming. When everyone hears his screams, they hurriedly lock all the doors, terrified of what might be out there. They soon realize that the mist indeed contains frightening creatures. Suddenly, a large earthquake shakes the supermarket, and everyone inside is terrified. A woman starts arguing with the others, demanding they let her leave so she can check on her kids at home. They refuse, telling her she might die if she goes out there, but she's determined. She reveals that she has an 8-year-old son named Victor, and insists she can't leave him alone for too long. She begs someone to go with her, but everyone refuses, too scared for their own lives. Afterward, the group gathers together, and David decides to explore the area. He leaves his son with the group and heads to the storage room to fix the broken generator. While in the storage room, David hears strange noises in the distance and realizes that the mysterious creatures are trying to get in. He returns to the others and informs them of what's happening. They decide to get the generator running, so they open the store's back door and ask a guy named Norm to stand guard to see if there really are creatures in the mist. Norm agrees to their plan, despite David's objections. Norm stands at the door, looking into the mist but sees nothing at first. Then, to everyone's horror, a strange creature suddenly appears and grabs Norm by the leg. Unfortunately, they are unable to save him. David yells at the person who was responsible, blaming him for Norm's death. The group tries to calm David down as his nerves are shot after failing to save Norm. Later, Mr. Ollie and David agree to head back to the supermarket to inform the others about what's happening, but David warns that no one will believe them because it sounds too unbelievable. David takes it upon himself to tell Mr. Norton, as he's a high-profile lawyer in New York and could become an influential figure in the future. David explains what happened to Norm, and everyone watches the conversation unfold from a distance. Norton argues with David, refusing to believe him, calling the story absurd. A huge argument breaks out between the two, and the tension escalates. Despite the disbelief, the group eventually sees proof when they come across a part of the creature. It becomes clear to everyone that the mist truly contains deadly creatures, and they realize they can't leave the supermarket for safety reasons. They start gathering all the supplies in the supermarket so the creatures in the mist can't break the glass and come inside to kill them. They manage to do this, but Norton still doesn't believe them and thinks they are lying to cover up Norm's murder. A woman named Carmody becomes very upset and tells everyone that what's happening is because of God's wrath on them, and they need to atone for their sins. She insists they all go out and face the monsters in the mist because that might reduce the burden of their sins. Everyone is frustrated with her, and a young woman eventually slaps her, but she doesn't stop talking. She tells them that the creatures will come at night to take another person, just like they did with Norm. At this point, there are children present, and Mr. Ollie tries to calm Carmody down, telling her that her behavior is scaring the kids. After some time, Norton still doesn't believe any of it, so he decides to go into the mist to see for himself if there are really monsters. David doesn't want him to go, fearing for his safety, and tries his best to stop him, but Norton is determined. A group of people goes with him so that, if there are monsters, they can protect themselves. They tie a rope around one of the men for safety. Suddenly, the rope is yanked violently, and everyone tries to pull it back as hard as they can, but they're shocked to find only half of the man's body left. Everyone is terrified, and night falls while they wait, but still, there's no sign of them. They assume the creatures have eaten them. At that moment, they see strange bugs on the glass, and suddenly, a giant creature appears. Everyone panics. One of them suggests that the light might be attracting the bugs, so they decide to turn off the lights, but it's too late. The bugs break the glass and enter the store, attacking the people inside. Chaos erupts as they try to fight off the bugs, but their attempts fail as they set the store on fire instead. A giant bug almost attacks Lee, but a woman intervenes just in time to save him. David rushes to his son to comfort him, as he's extremely frightened. Later, they find their friend in terrible condition after being attacked by the bugs. He begs them to kill him because he can't bear the pain any longer, but David tries to calm him down, telling him that he'll be okay and recover. Meanwhile, a woman named Hattie takes an overdose of pills and ends her life because she can't handle the situation anymore. They take her body and place it in a safe spot. On the other side, David tries to comfort his son, who's still crying and terrified. He tells him they'll get out of this place without getting hurt, but Billy, being so young, continues to cry and says he wants to go back to his mom. David reassures him, promising they'll return home as soon as possible. After that, David gathers everyone and tells them he's going to the nearby pharmacy to get some medicine, despite everyone's fear for his safety. They try to stop him, but he's determined because he's worried about the people in the store and wants to get them the medicine they need. A big argument breaks out, and eventually, a large group decides to go with him. They take plenty of flashlights and weapons to defend themselves in case they're attacked. They step into the mist, barely able to see each other, but they finally reach the pharmacy. They find the door open, which makes them even more anxious. Quickly, they gather all the medicine they can, and one of them tells the group they need to hurry because he hears something strange, meaning there are bugs nearby. They aim their flashlights at the ceiling and discover a massive number of bugs up there. Suddenly, they find a strange man completely trapped by the insects, unable to move at all. They try as hard as they can to free him from where he's stuck, but they fail, and the man dies. The insects start spreading everywhere, and these insects are totally different from the ones before, as they resemble large spiders. At this point, chaos erupts, more people die, and the remaining survivors rush back to the supermarket, terrified and grieving over the loss of their friend Joe. Everyone is in shock because of what they've seen. The woman, Mrs. Carmody, gathers a large group of the survivors and tells them that all of this is happening because of their many sins, and they need to atone. David gathers his group and heads to the storeroom, hoping to find something that can help them, but they are shocked to discover the police officers have killed themselves to avoid being killed by the terrifying insects. David, being smart, figures out that the fog is caused by the police, so he grabs one of the officers, starts fighting with him, and asks him why the police went up the mountain. He realizes that their ascent caused the dense fog and the insects that are now attacking them. The officer explains that the cops inside killed themselves because they knew what was coming. They ask Jacob, the cop, to explain everything that happened, and he reveals that the police believed in another world, different from the one they were in, so they decided to explore the mountain. He breaks down in tears and tries to explain that he is not to blame for what's happening. They understand it's not his fault. Then Carmody suggests that they punish him for his role in the disaster, arguing that they should feed him to the creatures as a sacrifice. Some agree with her, while others object. But something unexpected happens. A man kills Jacob without anyone noticing. After that, they throw him outside to the creatures. He begs them to open the door because he's scared, but they ignore him, and he dies. Later, when David is sleeping, his son wakes him up and makes him promise not to let the monsters eat him or hurt him, and also to never leave his side. David reassures his son that he loves him and will never abandon him. The next day, David gathers everyone and they come up with a plan to escape safely. They figure out where the car is and try to leave before the others wake up. But they're surprised to find Mrs. Carmody waiting for them in the middle of the path, holding a weapon. David confronts her, asking her to let them go, but by now everyone else is awake, and a fight breaks out. David tells her she has no right to interfere with their plans and that she should let them do what they need to do. At this point, chaos ensues because Mrs. Carmody tries to take Billy, David's son, to sacrifice him. Finally, Ollie, fed up with her, shoots her with his gun, killing her. They quickly flee, but the insects spot them and attack. David and the others manage to get into the car before the insects can harm them. There's a gun in the car, and David tries to grab it. He succeeds, but a large insect lands on the car. They drive away quickly, while the people in the supermarket watch. The first thing David does is head home to check on his wife, but unfortunately, he finds her dead. He breaks down in tears, filled with guilt. Afterward, they continue driving, unsure of where they are going. The entire place is in ruins, with bodies littering the streets. A massive insect crosses their path, but they keep moving. Eventually, the gas runs out, and the car stops in the middle of the road. David pulls out the gun, but there are only 4 bullets left, and there are 5 people in the car. He decides to kill everyone, and he does. He then steps out of the car, expecting the insects to kill him, but he's shocked when he sees police cars everywhere, seemingly having wiped out all the insects. At that moment, David breaks down, crying uncontrollably. And that's where today's movie ends. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe if you liked the video.